Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're gonna be having a look at some crazy storytime TikToks. You guys really enjoyed my last video in this, so we're gonna do another one. Before this video starts, remember subscribe and let's have a look at some crazy story times.
So here's a story time about how I almost died. It was a weekend during my freshman year of high school. My mom was away on a trip and I was home on the weekend with my grandma. I started to feel really sick, but I wasn't one to really make a big deal about anything, so I assumed it was just like food poisoning or something small. About 30 minutes go by and I start throwing up. Normally after I throw up, I feel better, but when I came out of the bathroom, my grandma was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "No, I still feel really sick." But I decided to drink some hot tea thinking maybe that would help. Next thing I know, I'm throwing that up as well. About an hour or two goes by and I'm still throwing up constantly. By this time, my grandma's starting to get worried. She asked me if I want to go to the emergency room and I tell her no because I had never gone there before for anything. I'd never been sick before. Like, I've been sick, but not this bad. Luckily, my grandma works at a hospital, so she decided to call the on-call nurse. The nurse tells her to take me to the emergency room ASAP. By this time, it's hard for me to stand. I'm buckled over like, ugh. She gets me in the car and she takes me to the emergency room. I sit in the waiting room for a really long time. When I finally get checked in, they diagnosed me with ovarian cysts, and my male doctor telling me it's just my period. But that wasn't what was wrong. It was something much worse.
Okay, so that there was part one. We're now gonna have a look at part two. But not gonna lie, that's kind of like me. Like, I would never ever take myself to hospital if I felt really ill. I don't know why, I kind of have a fear of hospitals for some reason. But like, the way I see it, if my leg isn't falling off and I don't need to be in hospital, by the sounds of it, something really bad is happening. Let's have a look at part two right now.
Story time about how I almost died, part two. So to catch you up, my male doctor has diagnosed me with ovarian cysts, saying my period is coming and I'm just in a lot of pain, and he sent me home on really high pain meds. We get home about 3 a.m. and I'm starting to feel a little bit better. Obviously, pain meds. So the next morning, I don't go to school, obviously. I'm still feeling pain, so I decided to take a few more pain meds. My grandma on my dad's side calls me, asks how I'm doing. I tell her I'm doing fine, I feel great, I'm gonna take a nap. But me being like 16, I take more pain meds than I probably should. When I wake up again 6 hours later, I'm in so much pain I can't move, and my mom's come home from her trip. I start screaming. And to give you an idea of how loud I'm screaming, my room's on the top floor. My mom's room is in the basement. She could hear me from the basement screaming. I am in unbearable pain. So much pain I cannot tell you. My mom rushes up the stairs, gets me out of bed, gets me in the car, and we're headed to the emergency room again. By the time we get there, I can't walk. The front desk lady sees me hobbling and helps me into the emergency room. Things are not looking good. My eyes are rolling back in my head and I'm starting to turn a bluey green.
Okay, so that was part two, and it seems to be getting even worse. I think there's like 3 parts in this story time. But yeah, she needs to get to hospital. This doesn't sound good whatsoever. And when she was talking about her taking her medication, you have to be really careful because she could accidentally overdose. It's really dangerous if you take more than a recommended amount. Oh gosh, let's have a look at part 3.
So my mom is next to me telling me don't close your eyes because I'm getting to that point where I'm like deathly pale, my eyes are rolling back in my head and I just can't control it. My mom sees the doctor walk out of one of the rooms and she hollers him over. She asks if he can check me out immediately and he looks at me and is like, definitely. He does a quick test pushing on my lower abdomen and realizes my appendix has ruptured. But the thing is, it ruptured a long time ago, nearly 24 hours ago. So while they're doing tests, my mom calls my dad and my other grandmas. When my dad arrives, they tell me they can't perform surgery on me and I need to go to a different hospital. The hospital couldn't perform surgery on kids. My dad hops in the ambulance for a good $10,000 bill racked up and we're headed to another hospital. At this point, things are kind of a blur. I was on a lot of drugs and I remember laughing at myself and my reflection, being scared of my reflection and constantly saying, "Where's my dad?" Honestly, I don't remember too much before the surgery, but I do remember the doctor asking me, is it on a scale from 1 to 10, how bad's the pain? I told him a 9.5 and then he looked at me and I was like, okay, 10. I also remember begging my mom for water, but she couldn't even give me a sip because the surgery was coming up. I started to cry.
Okay, so we're now gonna have a look at another part after this, but I had a feeling it could have been something to do with your appendix. I don't really know much about body parts, but somebody in my primary school had to get their appendix removed because it was about to burst. But if it does burst, you can literally die. Like, she is actually quite lucky that she didn't pass away, but that's actually kind of scary. And the thing is as well, if she lived in the UK, she wouldn't have to pay anything. In the UK, we've got free healthcare, so all surgeries are paid by the government. In America, if you literally go to hospital for like breaking a bone or like you just feel sick overall, you literally get a $1,000 fine. Like, it's actually kind of scary, and I feel like that's why so many Americans don't end up going to the hospital. But yeah, let's have a look at part 4 right now.
The doctor comes in the room and informs us that my body has gone septic and that I can't have any water and I need to drain my system before we can do surgery. So during that night, I'm begging my mom constantly for water and I'm on an IV drip. That evening, I go into surgery, but they can't remove the appendix because there's so much bile buildup. The thing is, my appendix leaked this stuff that caused cysts to grow all over the inside of my body. Instead of taking out the appendix, they decided to put a tube in me and drain all this nasty. But because of this nasty, I have a really high fever and they're putting me on a slew of different medication. Because I'm the youngest in the family, the news of me being in the hospital spread like wildfire. fire. For the next few days, it was a rotating cycle of distant friends and family coming in to check in on me. But here's where it gets interesting. Because I don't want to name any names, let's say I had a friend named A and a guy friend named Z. Z had a crush on me and A had a crush on Z. So when he came to visit, Z was being so sweet and loving and I was just not in the mood. A was obviously a little bit jealous because she liked him. I decided we should go for a walk and they wheelchair me to a big window in the hospital. Next thing I know, I'm flipping out on my guy friend Z.
Oh my gosh, this has got so many weird steps. Why is it every single time we listen to another part? And trust me, we're about to listen to part 5. Something new happens. Do you want to know something? They probably sent everyone to the hospital because they didn't know if she was gonna die or not. Like, they were literally thinking in the back of their head, yeah, she's definitely not gonna make it. It's actually kind of scary, but we're now gonna listen to part 5.
So I'm on a slew of drugs and my friends are visiting. One of those drugs being Oxycontin. Apparently, this made me mean to everyone. Anyway, Z's being really overly nice to me and loving and kind of treating me like his girlfriend, which I wasn't. I was over it. So I pretty much tell him, I'm not into you, I don't like you like that, stop being weird. It was really awkward for everyone. Anyway, Z and A go home. A couple days later, Z and A come to visit me again. But now, they're in a relationship. And that's a whole nother story. Anyway, a week and a half goes by and I'm out of the hospital. But the thing is, the appendix still not removed. The doctors tell us they can't remove my appendix yet until the cysts go away. About a month later, I go back to the doctors to get the appendix removed. They tell me it should be less than 48 hours, I'll be in and out, everything will be good. But it wasn't. When they do the surgery, they accidentally pop some of the cysts. That evening, I get a fever of 104.3. Apparently by 105, you can have permanent brain damage. It could be why I'm so weird. Anyway, they can't get this fever to go down. This stay went from 48 hours to a lot longer.
Okay, so if you thought 5 parts was long enough, there's about to be a 6th part. This literally needs to have a movie based off it because every single time she speaks, something new happens. Oh my gosh, I don't even know what to say. Let's listen to the 5th part. Is it even the 5th part? It's like the 5th or 6th part. This is literally like a mini movie.
I think this is the last one. Anywho, they are struggling to get this fever down. I'm at 104.2. It was actually rising. A bunch of codes are going off and there's a bunch of doctors in the room. It's crazy. Just hours after my last surgery, the doctors decide that right now we have to do an exploratory surgery to see what's wrong. They were worried that they may have missed something or messed something up. So they put me back under anesthesia for the 3rd time in less than a month. And the 2nd time in less than 12 hours. And that's when they realized that they had popped some of these cysts. The stay turned into 24 hours to being a week and a half again. Obviously, I ended up being fine. But for those of you that are interested in health and stuff like that, here's something interesting. Doctors had never seen this before. On the day my appendix ruptured, that entire floor was all people with appendicitis. 2, the doctor said they had never seen this before because my appendix had nestled itself down into my intestines as if my body was trying to remove this dead organ. They had never seen that before. 3, the doctor said he was surprised that I lived having that much toxin in my system. And 4, I was the worst appendix case my doctor had ever seen.
Okay, so that was all the parts and I didn't know how to feel about that. Like, that was such a roller coaster. She felt sick and then she went to the hospital and then she was sent home from the hospital, but then she got even worse. So she went back to the hospital, had surgery, got sent home, got sent back to the hospital, then got sent home, then came back. Everyone thought she was gonna die. Somebody had a crush on her and then she fell out with her friends. I don't know what happened. Like, I'm actually quite surprised that she survived. Like, oh my gosh, it's so crazy. She's so lucky that she's alive to tell this story. Anyways, on to the next story time.
Crazy ass story time. 23 years ago, there was this mother of 2 children who just recently had a 3rd child. Soon after, the newborn baby was sleeping in the nursery while they were throwing a house party, and unfortunately, during the party, the house caught on fire. Everyone scrambles out of the house and they couldn't get to the baby, and then the cops concluded that the baby had died in the fire. But her other 2 kids made it out alive. And even though the cops told her that her baby had died, she refused to believe it. Many years later, the mother took her 2 children to a birthday party, and there was this other woman there with her child. And now the mother looks at that child and is in shock because she looks so much like her other 2 kids. She goes up to the little girl and says that she has bubble gum in her hair so that she can steal a few strands of her hair. She took it to a lab and they DNA tested it, and that little girl was her child. So it turns out many years ago during that house party, a woman that the mother knew went upstairs, took the baby, and started the fire so that the baby would be declared as dead and she could easily get away with kidnapping her. And then she ran from the cops and they can't find her.
Oh my gosh, wait, what? That was such a weird story. Like, that had so many twists. Thinking about it now, that's probably the easiest way to steal a baby. Like, if you were gonna get kidnapped, that would probably be the safest and easiest way. Actually, it wouldn't be safe because you could get injured by the fire. But not gonna lie, that woman's actually kind of smart. But I feel so bad for the mother. Like, imagine that happening to you. The lady who took that baby needs to get arrested right now.
When I was was like 5 years old, I almost got kidnapped. Story time. So back in the day, it used to be safe for kids to play out on the street, or so I thought. You know, when you're a little kid, you really don't listen to your parents. Well, anyways, what happened was that my mom was cooking, and I was like, Mommy, please, 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 let me play outside with my new scooter. My mom was always very protective, so she would not let us out of her sight. She's like, I'm gonna go outside for 2 minutes with you, and then we're gonna come right back inside. I was like, yay! So I'm just over here playing outside, and my mom was like, se me queman las tortillas, se me queman las tortillas. For those who don't know, that means she was burning tortillas. She's like, sit on the steps here in the driveway. You know me being a dumb little child. I was like, let me see how fast I can go. Whee! Here I go with my scooter. I'm still in the driveway. This man and this woman are walking across the street. Then that creepy man was like, hey, come here. That woman was like, I just want to see your scooter. I dropped that scooter and I said, skirt. They started running after me up my driveway.
Okay, so that was part 1. That is actually really scary because you'd be surprised that happens a lot more than what you think. Like, yeah, it's a really scary world out there. My mom was like that. Like, I was never, ever, ever allowed out of her sight. Even now, she's still really protective. But yeah, the world is a scary place.
These people were literally running up my driveway after me. They weren't coming for my scooter. They weren't coming for my shoes. They were coming for my organs. Bro, my chunky little self had never ran so fast in her life. I could have won a marathon. I deserve an Olympic award. I ran up the steps and I got inside the house. I pushed the door closed and they're trying to open the door. I'm trying to catch my breath, trying to breathe. I'm screaming and telling my mom what's going on. She was freaking out. Comes out the door with a spoon. I don't know what she was planning to do with that spoon. All I know now that I'm a mom, this spoon is a weapon. Anything's a weapon when you're trying to defend your children. My mom says all she saw was people running down the street. She never got to see their faces. And no, there was no surveillance footage because we lived in the hood, the downfall of the hood. I got more story times about living in the hood. But anyways, this story time isn't meant to make fun of people who are kidnapped because it's scary and it's a big thing in the United States. I can laugh about this now, but sadly others can't. Take care of your children. Watch them at all times. You can't trust nobody.
Everything she said in that video is true. Like, it is a really scary world out there. Anyone that you're around could literally kidnap you and sell you. It genuinely does terrify me. Like, I have a really big fear of being kidnapped. Never be alone in your own, especially in the dark or somewhere where you don't know where you are, because you don't know who could be looking at you. Like, honestly, the world is scary. Anyways, guys, that is the end of the video. We had a look at some crazy TikTok story times, and honestly, they were crazy. Like, some of these stories could definitely be made into movies. Anyways, hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, subscribe and leave a like, and yes, I will see you all in my next video.